Namaskar, this is Rig. Welcome to the episode 6 of Dharma series, where we discuss things related to Hindu philosophy and ancient Indian religion. So, today our topic of discussion is the four ashramas. This is the start of a new series on the four ashramas. Here we will see an introduction to what are the ashramas or the stages of life. In our last slide, we are also going to mention the sources so that you don't have any doubts regarding the verification of this video. And before starting this video, I'd like to apologize for my pronunciations because Sanskrit words when translated into English becomes very difficult to pronounce. So let's start with the four ashramas. Introduction to the ashram system. Now, what was the ashram system in Hindu philosophy or in ancient India? So, in this video, we are going to study the meaning and origin. The presentation begins with the root shram, means to exert. So, the word ashram comes from the root shram, showing how ashram means a stage of exertion. It will trace the earliest references from Ṛgveda, Atharvaveda, Upaniṣads, and the Dharmasūtras. So these are the texts we are going to refer in this video. So we are going to study the meaning and origin of the ashram system. Then we will see how the system evolved. We will study how the ashram system developed gradually from scattered mentions of Brahmacharin and Muni to fully institutionalized four stages described by Manu and others. So we will see how it was a scattered and disorganized system. It was mismanaged in the beginning, and there are hardly any mentions of the stages of ashram. Then later on, it developed into a full-fledged institutionalized and organized system in ancient India. We will study the four stages of life, that is from Brahmacharya, which means studenthood, how the person goes to Gṛhastha, which means householder stage, and then we are going to see Vānaprastha, which means the stage where a person becomes forest dweller, and we are also going to see the Sannyāsa state where a person renunciates every materialistic pleasures of life. We are also going to see the debates in scriptures. We will go through important texts like the Chandogya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Aitareya Brahmana, Jalopanishad, and Mahabharat. All these things will be cited, and the evolution of the ashrama will be seen according to all these scriptural debates. We are also going to see the three depths and duties one should perform in their life. So, special focus will be given to the theory of three depths, which is Rin, towards gods, sages, and ancestors. So, one is indebted towards gods, sages, and one's ancestor, considered central to Vedic life and their link with the householder stage. So how are all these things, all these depths linked to the stage of householder? We are going to see all those things also. We are also going to study the later developments where we will see how Buddha, Mahavir, later Sankaracharya transformed renunciation into organized monastic orders influencing Hindu society and philosophy. So these are the things we are going to study in this presentation. So let's start with origin and meaning of ashram. So how did the word ashram originate and what does it actually mean? So etymology means how the name came into being. The word ashram is derived from the root shram, meanings to exert or to labor. So shram means to labor or to exert oneself, to work. Hence, ashram means a stage in which one exerts oneself. So, you have been given the privilege of life. You should use it to the maximum benefit for the world. So, ashram means a stage where one exerts oneself. You should use your life for the benefit of yourself and the world. In its wider sense, it refers to the four stages of man's life and his duties. So, how will you exert yourself? That can be done by following the four stages of man's life. The term does not occur in the Samhitas. So early references does not include the word ashram. So it is not there in the Samhitas or Brahmanas, nor in early Upanishads. So all the ancient texts or the authoritative text of Hinduism does not include the word ashram in the beginning. So it is not there in the Samhitas, Brahmanas or early Upanishads. The Svetasvara uses Atyasrami for monks who rise above normal observances. So this is the closest word to ashram we find in ancient texts, that is Atyasrami, which means it refers to the monks who rose above normal spiritual wellness, and that has been mentioned in Svetasvara. So this is the closest to ashram word we get in the ancient texts. Brahmakarin in Ṛgveda. So the Ṛgveda mentions the word Brahmakarin, which means the term Brahmakarin appears in Ṛgveda. The Atharvaveda praises the Brahmakarin and Brahmacharya, which is considered to be the first ashram. So the Ṛgveda has the word Brahmakarin, which may be considered to be a reference to the stage of Brahmacharya. Whereas in Atharvaveda, we get praises related to the stage of Brahmakarin, and we get mention of the word Brahmacharya, which means the stage of first ashram or the first stage of a man's life. Marriage hymn in Ṛgveda. There is an hymn related to marriage in Ṛgveda. So in Ṛgveda, the husband tells his bride that gods gave her for Gṛhapatya. So Gṛhapatya is the duty which the bride must do. That means the status of householder. So in Ṛgveda, there is an instance where the husband tells his bride that you are here for Gṛhapatya. This indicates to the knowledge of second ashram. So Gṛhapatya is the second ashram. So through the mention of marriage hymn in Ṛgveda, we get a reference to the second ashram or the second stage of a man's life. Other terms are also there, such as the Ṛgveda mentions Muni as ascetics with supernatural powers. So Munis are mentioned in Ṛgveda as people who have supernatural powers. Ṛgveda calls Indra friend of Munis. So Indra is the king of the gods or king of Deblok, who is referred to as the friend of Munis. And the Atharvaveda also speaks of divine Muni. So this is an indirect reference to the sannyas or the last stage of ashram. So we get more or less crude references to the four stages of ashrams from the ancient texts. Now we will see what was the early development of the four ashramas, or how did the stages evolve into an organized system. So institutionalization. Ascetics existed in Rig-Vedic age, but the four ashramas were not yet institutionalized. So the four stages of human life was very much fragmented and unorganized. So during the Rig-Vedic age, that is from approximately 1500 BC to 1000 BC, we find the existence of ascetics, but the four stages of human's life was not yet organized. The Chandogya refers to three ashramas. Brihadaranyaka mentions sage Yajnavalkya leaving household life for Pravajana or the fourth ashrama. So we get meanings of the four stages of life from texts like Chandogya Upanishads, where three stages are mentioned, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishads mentions the sage Yajnavalkya who left household to become a parivraja, which is reference to the fourth ashram or the fourth stage of life, that is sannyas. Aitareya Brahmana references four ashramas through symbolic usage of ajina. So, four ashramas are referenced through symbols. What are those symbols? The antelope skin means Brahmacharya. So, antelope skin is the reference to the first stage of man's life, that is Brahmacharya or the student phase. Samasruni or beards mention Vānaprastha. So having beards mention that you are living a life of retirement. So these are symbolic references to the four stages. And tapas means sannyas. So mala perhaps indicates householder or grihastha. So mala is the reference to the stage, the second stage, that is grihastha. Beards or Shamasrunis are the references to the third stage, that is Vanaprastha, and Tapas are the references to the stage of Sannyasa, which is the last stage of a man's life. Theory of four ashramas became common in the early Dharmasūtras. So these four ashrams theory became common during the time of early Dharmasūtras. The variations in nomenclature and sequence existed, but institutions had not attained final form. So there was variation in nomenclature because the names of the four stages were not yet fixed. So according to the Dharmasūtras, there was mention of the four stages, but the names were not fixed properly, and there was also a sequence, but it was not the final form. Manu's statement. Manu explicitly mentions four ashramas, later naming the last two as Yati and Sannyas. So the last two stages, that is the Vanaprastha or and the Sannyasa stage, has been referred to as or has been named as Yati and Sannyas. However, during Manu's time we find proper mention of the four ashramas. Then there was standardized division. So by Manu's time, the four ashramas were formalized as Brahmacharya, second stage was Grihastha or Gṛhastha, the third stage was Vanaprastha, and the fourth stage was Sannyas. Manu divides man's life into four equal parts, one for each ashram. So Manu has explicitly mentioned the four stages of human life, and he has divided the four stages in equal parts. So we have seen how the early development of ashramas, where it was very much unorganized and the sequence was not proper, and how did it evolve during Manu's time. So now we get a proper evolution of the four stages of human life. Sequence, interpretations, and debate. So what was the sequence? How can we interpret the four stages from the ancient sources, and what are the controversies or debates regarding the four stages or the four ashramas? Sequential order. Smṛtis emphasize that one must pass through each ashrama sequentially without reverting to an earlier stage after moving forward. So according to the Smṛtis, it is very much of a rule that before you complete one stage of your life, you cannot move forward to the next. And if you somehow move forward to the next step, then you cannot go back to the previous step. So the sequence was very much concrete and fixed, and that has been emphasized in the Smritis. Manu also said that there is prohibition in transition from Brahmacharya directly to sannyas. So, according to Manu, if you are in the Brahmacharya stage, you cannot directly go to sannyas stage. That means after Brahmacharya, you will have to go to Gṛhastha stage, then you will have to go to Vānaprastha state, and after that only you can become a sannyas. So that was Manu's view, where he had prohibited step jumping. Brahmana Sutras. So what does the Brahmana Sutras say? So according to the Brahmana Sutra, there is a forbidden thing regarding sannyasin from reverting to householder life. So if one has become a sannyasi, if one has rejected or renounced all the materialistic things in his life, then there is no way that he can go back to a householder's life. So Brahmana Sutra strictly forbids a sannyasi to go back to the life of a householder. So all these three texts very much focus on this sequence, and all the three texts mention that this sequence cannot be broken. Parivrajaka theory. Some argued that after Brahmacharya, a person could directly become a Parivrajaka or a sannyasi. So, according to the Parivrajaka theory, once you complete the student phase of your life, you could directly become a sannyasi. So, this itself is a debate. There is a debate regarding which you can follow. So different sources mention different kinds of rules. So according to the Parivrajaka theory, if you are in the Brahmacharya and if you pass the Brahmacharya stage of your life, you can directly become a sannyasi. So this was supported by Āpastamba and Yajnavalkya. So Yajnavalkya and Āpastamba also supports the theory of Parivrajaka. Means if you are passing the Brahmacharya, you can directly become a Parivrajak or a sannyasi. Jābālopaniṣad. So there is a late text, that is Jābālopaniṣad. It reconciles both views. So Jābālopaniṣad is granting us a solution regarding which view you should follow. So after Brahmacharya, one may become a householder, grihi, forest dweller, Vānaprastha, or a renunciate. So after Brahmacharya, you may go sequentially through all the stages and become a sannyasi. That is, after Brahmacharya, you will have to lead the life of a householder. Then you can go and become a forest dweller or Vanaprastha, and then you can live all the materialistic pleasures and become a sannyasi. However, it also permits renunciation directly after any stage. So Jābālopanishad is providing a solution where it is saying that you can go step by step, or if you complete one step and if you feel like you are ready to renounce all the worldly pleasures, then you can directly become a sannyasi. Final understanding. So what is the conclusion regarding the sequence that we can draw from all these sources? So the Jābālopanishad adds that one who becomes desireless may renounce immediately. So if you don't have any desire, then you can renounce in whatever stage of life you are in. So it doesn't matter whether you are following all the steps properly or not. According to Jābālopanishad, you can renounce at any point of life if you lose all desire. With the formula Yad Ahareva Virajat Tad Ahareva Parvajat. So this is a formula which has been prescribed in the Jābālopanishad, which means that the very day he becomes desireless, he should renounce. So if you don't have any desire in your life, that day itself you are ready to become a parivrajak or a sannyasi. So you can renounce in whatever point in your life you are. It doesn't matter. Yajnavalkya and the three views. So, what was the view of Yajnavalkya and what are the other views regarding the ashram system? So, Yajnavalkya's statement, Yajnavalkya presents three views on ashrams and allows one to follow any each. So, each view is supported by Vedic texts. So, Yajnavalkya promotes three views on ashramas and one should select any one of these views, and all these views have authenticity because it has been supported in the Vedic texts. Tattariya Samhita. So Tattariya Samhita is an ancient text that states that every Brahmakarin is born with three depths. So each person is born with three depths. What are those three depths? Sacrifices to gods or deva. You are indebted towards God. Then procreation to the manas or pitṛs. So you should procreate, you should leave your descendants in this world and study of the Vedas with the teacher as Rishi. So you have three duties or three debts which you should fulfill when you have been presented with the gift of life. That is, you should sacrifice to the gods and you should be involved in procreation, and also you should study the Vedas as a rishi. So these are the three depths according to Tattariya Samhita. Manu's view. Manu's emphasizes that one who seeks moksha must first study the Vedas properly. So, if you are seeking enlightenment, moksha means enlightenment, that is to become one with the divine. So, if you are seeking enlightenment, then you must first study the Vedas properly, perform sacrifices, and beget a legitimate son. Otherwise, he goes to hell. So, you should follow all these three duties, that is to perform sacrifices towards gods and study the Veda properly and also to live your predecessor or to have a legitimate son. These are the three debts you must pay if you have been given the gift of life, or else you will go to hell according to Manu. Role of twice born man. So twice born man are the Dvijas, which means the upper two caste, Brahmins and Kshatriyas. So a twice born who leaves home for moksha without producing a son or studying Vedas is condemned. So if a twice born person goes leaves all the materialistic things and goes for moksha, if he lives every kind of duties and goes to become an ascetic without producing a son or studying Vedas, then that person is not a good person, then that person will be condemned. Conflict with sannyas. A sannyasin could not discharge the three debts if he renounced immediately. So, a sannyasi is supposed to become a sannyasi only after completing the three sacred duties, that is, to study Vedas, to perform sacrifices, and to procreate. This made early text critical of premature renunciation. So the early text does not support premature renunciation. And that was the three views of Yajnavalkya which have been supported in different other texts like Tattariya Samhita or Manu Smṛti. Three depths and their importance. So what are the importance of the three depths? Debts were to devas. So, what are the three debts? First debt was to the gods or to the devas. And how will you fulfill it? through sacrifices. Second depth is rishi, means to study the Vedas, and the third depth is pitri, means to procreate. So these are the three depths which have been very well defined in the ancient texts. View of Gautama and Baudhāyana. So both declared these functions, study, sacrifice, and procreation, so essential that they considered only one ashram, that is of the householder, that is Gṛhastha. So according to Gautama and Baudhāyana, they give very much importance to the three depths, that is to study Vedas, to sacrifice for the gods, and to procreate. And this is very much essential. This is so much essential that they view only one step to be important, that is householder's step, or Gautama and Baudhayana view that ashram is only one, that is the householder or grihastha. So that is how much importance they have given to the three depths. Baudhayana's quotation cites Ṛgveda and Tattariya Samhita. May we, O Agni, attain immortality through progeny. So, according to Baudhayana, progeny is very much important because it has been mentioned in Ṛgveda and Tattariya Samhita that it is through progeny that one can become immortal. So, that is the view of Baudhayana. He quotes that may we, O Agni, attain immortality through progeny. Dominance of the Grihastha Asrama. So, according to many philosophies, Grihastha Ashram or the Grihastha stage of one's life is the most important stage. Since depths were essential, the householder's role became central in Vedic thought, making other ashramas subordinate. So depths, fulfilling of the three depths are the most important thing one can do in their life. So how will you fulfill the three steps? You will have to give importance to Grihastha ashram or the Grihastha stage, that is the second stage. And so all other steps become more uh, become less important. So Grihastha becomes the central in Vedic thought. Grihastha ashrama is the main ashram according to Vedic philosophy. Other ashramas are subordinate. So there is a dominance of Grihastha ashram. Vishistha Daivata tradition. Vijnananeshwara, who comes 400 years after Shankar, argued based that Sannyāsa could be adopted immediately after Brahmacharya. Now here is a contradictory view where Vijnananeshwara says that after Brahmacharya one could become a sannyas. So it skips the most important stage where three depths are supposed to be fulfilled, that is the Grihastha ashram. Continuity of the idea. The three depth theory was upheld strongly by Hindus through the ancient period, ensuring marriage and progeny were sacred duties. So, legitimate marriage and progeny through legitimate marriage was considered to be sacred duty in Hindu society during the ancient period. Sannyas and later development. So, what is sannyas and how did the theory of sannyas developed later? So, Sannyāsa Upanishads. Out of 108 Upanishads, about 20 are collectively called Sannyāsa Upanishads. So, out of the total 108 Upanishads, only 20 are called Sannyāsa Upanishad. The Jābālopaniṣad is part of this group. So, the Jābālopaniṣad, about which we have discussed before, is a part of this Sannyasa group of Upanishads which are only about 20 in number. Ancient restriction. Early views restricted sannyasa mainly to old men. Renunciation was not encouraged for the young. So early views supported that only old people are supposed to be sannyas. Renunciation of worldly life at a very young age or by skipping all the steps is not at all encouraged according to the ancient form of ashrams. So there was restriction based on how you can become a sannyas. Kautilya's view, which has been mentioned in Arthaśāstra, he states that one cannot renounce without providing for wife and sons. A man losing capacity for activity may renounce after permission from judges, otherwise, he should be restrained. So, this is one point of practicality which must be noted. That is, suppose you pass the student phase, that is Brahmacharya, and then you enter the Gṛhastha phase and you marry a fine woman, a sacred through sacred ritual, and then suddenly you leave everything and you go and to attain moksha, then that should not be encouraged because you are not fulfilling your duties. So you cannot live or you cannot escape from your responsibilities just because you have spiritual knowledge or just because you have a spiritual goal of moksha. You cannot shy away from the other responsibilities. So if you have a wife and a son, then you should be responsible for them, you should provide for them, and then only after making their life secure you are allowed to leave them and renounce everything in order to become sannyas. And if you don't follow this process, if you don't fulfill your responsibility towards your wife and son, then you will be condemned and you will be restrained by the judges of the society. So, sannyas is not always a good thing. If you shy away from your responsibilities and become a sannyas and try to get a lot of importance in the society, then you will not be seen as a good person. Mahabharata's position. Mahabharata denounced able bodied ascetics, showing resistance to early premature renunciation. So, Mahabharata also says that premature renunciation means you are shying away from your duties, and that should not be encouraged. Buddha and Mahavira's impact. So, Buddha and Mahavir recognized ascetic life through monastic orders, creating well knit renunciant communities. So, Buddha and Mahavir played a very important role in order to organize the system of asceticism or in order to organize the system of renunciation. So, they organized monastic orders which was whose sole purpose was to see that a renunciant community developed properly. Later Brahmanical response. So before Shankaracharya, who lived from 788 to 820 AD, Brahmanical Hindus lacked organized monasticism. So Shankaracharya was the one who developed ascetic orders and gave a proper structure to the sannyasa system or ascetic orders in Hinduism. So their contribution cannot be ignored. Now we will see the sources which gave all the information which we have discussed. So here I'm just going to read out the sources because the information have already been discussed. So you can screenshot this and you can go for your own research and verification later on. Ṛgveda references to Brahmacharya, Grihapatya and ascetics or munis. They appear in hymns such as then the hymn numbers are given. Atharvaveda also praises the Brahmacharya and mentions of Deva Muni are found in these uh, number versions of Atharvaveda, verses of Atharvaveda. Upanishads are also important texts, and it also includes other texts like other subtexts like Svetasvara, Chandogya, Vrihadharnika, Jalopanishad, and other groups such as Sannyāsa Upanishads, which are about 20 out of 108. Brahmanas are there, Aittariya Brahmana. It refers symbolically to the ashramas through ajina, means through symbolic representations like beards, antelope hides, all these things. Shamasruni and tapas. Dharmasūtras and Smṛtis also include Āpastamba, Gautama, Baudhāyana, and Manu Smṛti. So these are the Dharmasūtras and Smṛtis which mention a lot of information about the ashramas. Tattariya Samhita, where we see the stress on the three depths and duty of progeny and sacrifices, which we have discussed in detail. Later texts and thinkers are also there like Kautilya's Arthaśāstra, Mahabharata, Vijnaneshwara, and they highlight the debates and developments regarding the ashram system. Now, before we end this, I would like to say that next video will be on the ashram or the first stage of life, that is Brahmacharya. So this was an introduction to the ashram system in Hindu life. We are going to discuss every ashram one by one in these videos. So those videos are going to be very much detailed. I know my videos are not visually very much attention seeking or entertaining, but I can guarantee you in open source you will not get more detailed informative videos than this. And if you get, then please refer to them in comments so that I can also learn and my knowledge also becomes enriched. So thank you so much for your love and support. Don't forget to comment your own views, or don't forget to debate in the comments also. So thank you for your love and support. Stay tuned for the upcoming videos on the four ashramas.